Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Thursday, March 20th, 2025. Um, so let's see. So tonight, we're gonna first off, we're gonna of course give people a chance to come in before we get started. But let's see. I hope everybody's having a good week thus far as we wind down. We're getting down to the latter end of March here. Hopefully, everybody was safe during, of course, Monday with their drinking habits. All right. So, anyways, they saw some interesting cartoons. Watched Betty Boop Judge for a Day, in which kind of a little funny thing where public pests back then included people would blow smoke in your face, who would splash you with mud. And she talked about what she would do if she was judge, or the back slappers. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? All right. So, anyways, a friendly reminder, of course, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, as we get ready to, let's see, I might as well just start. I guess I'll just talk about what's on tap for tonight. So for tonight, of course, tonight I'm gonna go over like four articles, one from Bleeding Fool, and the others from BTV Tunes. We got a few. So first off, we're gonna do a follow up article regarding the Stan Lee documentary story. And you may have heard that's being crowdfunded by his former assistant, to kind of highlight what was going on in those last, I guess, couple of years of Stan's life, how he was like basically mistreated. Then we're gonna from there we will be going on. We'll be going on to some articles from MeTV Tunes talking about, of course, Ron Howard actually during a car ride with his dad actually came up with an idea for a Flintstones episode that I think may have got produced. Going to do a comparative piece between Rabbit Rhapsody and Cat Concerto, basically Looney Tunes cartoon with Bugs on the piano and a MGM cartoon with Tom and Jerry on the piano, and then also be looking at Mel Blanc going to talk a little bit about who his favorite characters were, I guess. His favorite Looney Tunes characters. Plus, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap up. Look back to last night's Dynamite. Look ahead to tonight's. Look ahead to tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. Get caught up on all the latest in the WWE news. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Let's see. And before I do get to reading the article, let me just try one last time to see if I can get the word out a little bit more here. All right, so with all that being said, of course, let's go ahead and get into this. More on that shocking Stan Lee, the final chapter documentary article by Avi Green published earlier today. And like you see, they got the black and white picture there of him, like basically almost like down on his desk like this with his head down. You know, some people have argued, at least some of the excerpts I've seen from the documentary, they talk about how there are times he was just so fatigued, and didn't really want to do it, but yet they continue to push him. But anyways, let's get into this. So USA Today also reports on that Stan Lee documentary being developed with crowdfunding that also shed light on the sad maltreatment he went through in his last years. As Avi speaking, so here's from the USA Today article. A newly announced documentary is alleging to expose the quote truly heartbreaking unquote end to Marvel comic book genius Stan Lee's life. But first, its filmmakers need financing to release it. Film producers are seeking $300,000 from a Kickstarter campaign to finish the project. Quote, Stan Lee, the final chapter, unquote. Lee, the cultural icon responsible for many of the most popular superheroes in comic books and movies, died in November 2018 at the age of 95. Quote, the final chapter, unquote, will detail the quote unquote scandal around Lee's final years using, quote, never before seen footage, unquote, to detail, quote, how mistreatment, duplicity, and conflict plagued, unquote, the fan-beloved creator. According to a release from the uncompleted film. You can tell that USA Today, where they probably seem to be leaning. The film is alleging it will expose Lee's closest confidants, quote, including several who exploited Lee's declining health and age while profiting off his name and likeness, unquote. The Kickstarter campaign focuses on John Bolerjack, a comic book artist, filmmaker, and assistant to Lee, who became a, quote, fixture of his inner circle, unquote, while filming. According to the Kickstarter page, Bolerjack, quote, is ready to share, unquote, the story. Quote, John gained unprecedented access and filmed everything he saw, unquote. The Kickstarter campaign description reads, quote, what he uncovered was a thriving market where Stan's signatures and memorabilia were converted into huge piles of cash, and rival hucksters double-crossed each other to control Stan's fortune, unquote. So now here's Avi speaking again, I guess replying to what we just read here. It was an utter disgrace how all these supposed confidants took advantage and profited off the poor guy, all because he was once known as a pop culture icon who created several famous characters in his time, all by people who've never defended his creations, even before he passed on. Now back to the article here. Let's see. And as I said before, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more people to engage, some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, of course, continuing on here, the tangled drama around Lee's life burst into the public in 2018 when a Los Angeles court sided with lawyers representing Lee's daughter, J.C. Lee, who successfully sought an elder abuse restraining order against a former Lee manager, Kia Morgan. Journalist Abraham Reisman's 2021 Warts and All biography, quote, The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee, unquote, detailed the final years of Lee's life and the lawsuits and failed business ventures that plagued it. Now this now Now here's Avi responding to that statement. So now hold on a moment. Didn't Morgan collaborate with Reisman on developing the book, which was just a tabloid tearing down of an icon? Some of the details there seemed deliberately written as to tarnish Lee's image, even though he obviously wasn't a saint, and if this isn't being obscured, that's disgraceful. I hope the case against Morgan will figure into this documentary if and when it's completed. But whether Reisman's disrespectful reception of Lee will be discussed remains another question yet to be answered. I think it's very fortunate that in the end, Lee's daughter was able to clear things up, and he spent his last several months safe at his estate with people more familiar with and respecting of him, including Roy Thomas, if memory serves. And I don't understand what's so special about a guy who was a revered comics writer editor in his time that some scumbags had to take advantage of his elderly age just so they could line their pockets with bucks at his expense. No doubt there's a vital lesson in this scandal, and let's hope more sensible comic writers are working on it. Well, yeah, you hope to see what you hope to ultimately see out of this. I would take is, or what you take away from this is, as these people age out and as their time, on this mortal coil comes to an end, that you don't have vultures trying to take advantage of them. That you keep the vultures away from them in their waning days. So that's all for that story. Of course, another friendly reminder to, hey, Rick, thanks for popping in, my friend. Yep. So, anyways, now we're going to move on to Me TV Tunes and go through a few of the cartoon articles on there. There's 3 of them that come out in the last few days here. All fairly quickies, I believe. All right, so here's the first one. A young Ron Howard came up with a Flintstone episode while on a car ride with his father. So Ron Howard, for those of you who don't know, is a famous actor director, probably from his acting credits, most known for playing Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, as well as Opie from the Andy Griffin Show, but then went on to become a famous director as well. So, as if Howard wasn't already successful enough. Article came out on March 17, 2025 by MeTV Toon staff. So let's get into this. So Ron Howard has been blessed with many gifts as an actor, director, and writer. Seems like everything this man touches turns to gold. If that doesn't make you jealous, think about the fact that Howard's performance career began in his adolescence, meaning his success had pretty much been lifelong. Well, even younger than adolescence, he was a kid. I mean, he was what, like 10 or 11 when he did the Andy Griffin Show. So he was already, maybe even younger than that. So, granted, Howard has had his issues and shortcomings like anyone, but it's still an incredibly impressive track record. That being said, please add the Flintstones to Howard's resume, because according to Ron and Clint Howard's book, The Boys, a memoir of Hollywood and family, Ron actually dreamed up an episode plot that was actually used by the show's production team. Hmm. In addition to acting um, as Ron's guardian on set, uh, in addition to acting as Ron's guardian on set, Rance Howard also acted as chauffeur, driving the young actor to and from Desilu Studios to shoot for Andy Griffin show. So Rance Howard, of course, I guess is his dad. But when he wasn't taking care of his kids, Rance also had a few irons in the television fire. In addition to being an actor, Rance also worked as a screenwriter. Typically, he worked on potential spec scripts, but had some luck when the Flintstones accepted a few of his scripts as well. In fact, so talented was Rance Howard that he was invited to pitch a few ideas to Joe Barbera, co-creator of the series. Hmm. Very interesting. While Rance Howard may have had insight into the writing process through his work, Ron Howard has insight as a child had insight as a child, an avid Flintstones fan. Howard wrote, quote, I knew the Flintstones backwards and forward, and as Dad talked through a couple of his notions for new episodes, I was suddenly struck with one of my own. What is Fred convinced Wilma to let him get the used car that he coveted? But when he does, he finds out there is something that's been hidden in the car by gangsters, thereby putting Fred in danger. Unquote. Ah, oh, I think it's supposed to be what if, not what if. What if Fred convinced Wilma to let him get the car, the used car that he coveted? Ah, okay, yeah. I think that is I think I remember seeing that episode before myself. So, um, Rance told his son that he'd bring the pitch to Barbera, and to both of their excitement, the idea was accepted and put into development. The episode became the Flintstones episode's quote Fred's second car unquote. Ron Howard often credited his father for instilling a love for screenwriting in him at a young age. He wrote, quote, my exposure to his dad's writing ambitions and achievements meant as much to me as his acting guidance. Hmm. So there you go. That's a very interesting story there. An interesting sidebar there. Hmm. Hmm. Alrighty then. So, anyways, as we continue on here. All right, so let's get ready to move on to next article then. Next article then. Rhapsody Rabbit versus the Cat Concerto. Tom and Jerry versus Bugs Bunny. Article published March 19th, 2025 by MeTV and staff. So let's take a look at this. All right. Are you interested in some animated beef? We are serving up some drama today in the form of a face-off that took place at the 19th Academy Awards. It was MGM versus Warner Brothers in the form of two very similar, some would say too similar cartoons. In one corner, a Bugs Bunny Merry Melody short, Rhapsody Rabbit, quote unquote, and in the other corner, Tom and Jerry, starring in quote unquote the Cat Concerto. Both sides accused each other of plagiarism and the idea theft because the cartoons were so similar. While not diving too deeply into the timelines and beef, let's examine the similarities and differences between these two nearly identical cartoons. Now, mind you, the cartoons themselves are pretty generic. It's basically about the characters, doing a piano recital. So there, of course, there are gonna probably be some similarities there. But let's see. Same music. Both cartoons feature Hungarian Rhapsody number 2 by Franz Liszt. Same mouse holes. Both mice are depicted as living in the piano with a mouse hole right at the keyboard. Jerry specifically wakes up because Tom's playing the piano playing shakes his sleeping quarters, and I do remember that. You do you see Jerry in particular bouncing around on the strings of the on the strings of the piano on the strings of the inner workings of the piano. Same visual gags. Bugs and Tom both play the piano with their feet at different points in the cartoons. Mm-hmm. They also both react to the piano keys seemingly playing themselves. Additionally, they both act like overly serious divas as they walk on stage at the beginning. Different visual gags. So we had same visual gag. Now we had different visual gags. One area where Rhapsody Rabbit is unique is that Bugs heavily leaps into visual gags in all the lulls. He pulls out fun gloves. He scoops up all the piano keys and much more. When the mouse is away, Bugs still plays. Same visual gags, Mice Edition. Jerry and the unnamed Looney Tunes mouse both run and dance across the piano keys and bounce between the piano hammers. The mouse runs away from the hammers, but Jerry sees the hammers as yet another opportunity to mess with Tom. That's kind of interesting. Different reactions to the mice. Bugs is surprised that there's a mouse at all. If Tom could talk, he probably would say, quote, "You again?" unquote. Different mice defenses. The little mouse gets one smack back at Bugs, and then he basically gives up until it's time for his big finale. Jerry sees every part of the piano as a new and exciting way to agitate Tom. Yeah, including picking up the actual piano hammers and trying to bop Tom with the actual piano hammers, the key hammers there. Different Tom and Jerry. Part of why the Cat Concerto likely won at the Oscars because it leaned into Tom and Jerry's typical relationship dynamics, but placed them in the arena of a piano recital, even when they're at odds. Tom and Jerry have fun chasing and antagonizing each other. Different angry Bugs. Bugs Bunny feels like an Old Testament god. He's angry almost from the first moment he sets foot on stage, even shooting an audience member for coughing. He's vicious in dealing with the mouse. And while we generally expect Tom to be angry and grumpy in the Tom and Jerry cartoons, Bugs is normally the goofy, lighthearted one. So basically, they're saying that seeing Bugs getting all upset and angry is, not common for him, which it isn't. I mean, we've seen Bugs annoyed before because, of course, Bugs gets annoyed at Daffy a lot when Daffy's trying to upstage him, and of course, I'm sure he gets a little annoyed with Elmer Fudd every time he tries to kill that wascally wabbit. Different defeat. Both Tom and Bugs are bested by their mice. Tom is outplayed to the point of exhaustion and collapses on the piano, but Bugs gives up and pouts about losing. This is also a difference between the two as characters. Tom loses to Jerry all the time and is used to it. Bugs never loses. Well, Bugs is usually not put in the role of the antagonist either. Bugs most of the time is the protagonist, so he's probably not used to being the antagonist. Same, the mice win. After an epic musical battle, both mice win. They both put on tuxedos and take a bow too. Yep. Conclusion. Both cartoons are excellent and should be loved forever. Regardless of who copied who, both cartoons found a fun way to introduce audiences to classical music, and showed all the ways a mouse can mess up a piano performance. Which is true. That's, something that would probably appeal to a lot of people. Some creativity in there, right? All right, there we go with that one. So we do have one more article before we move on to the wrestling wrap-up, of course. This one should be another. Actually, I do need to step away from the computer for a moment, so I'll be right back. I'll put some music on to entertain you guys while I'm gone here. I'll be right back. As I get to the right thing here. All right, I'm back. So let's get back. Let's get to this last article here about Mel Blanc. Alrighty then. So, Mel Blanc on his favorite Looney Tunes character, the story behind Suffering Succotash. Article published today, March 20th, by MeTV Toon staff. So let's get a look at this then. In his autobiography, That's Not All, Folks, Mel Blanc gave a deep dive into his approach to voicing cartoon characters. He took each character's appearance and physique into consideration when developing the voice. Like when he first voiced Sylvester the cat, he said, "quote When I was first shown the model sheet of Sylvester with his floppy jowls and generally disheveled appearance, I said to Fritz Freeling, um, in small quotes, a big sloppy cat should have a big sloppy voice. Um, he should spray even more than Daffy." Blank was so committed to Sylvester's overly exaggerated lisp that he would have to wipe saliva off of his scripts. Oh boy! He even joked with June Foray, the voice of Granny, that she should wear a raincoat to recording sessions. Oh boy! Yeah, I'm sure she probably thought that was a nice thing. You're going to spit on me during the recording sessions, buddy. You better hope I don't have my umbrella with me, because I might just bop you with it. You bad putty tat. While Blank enjoyed most of his Looney Tunes characters, he eventually admitted that Sylvester was his favorite. Quote, Sylvester has always been a favorite of mine. He's a great deal like Daffy, a perpetual fall guy with a near identical voice. Daffy is pitched up slightly, while Sylvester is recorded at regular speed and sounds the closest to my natural way of speaking. He's always been the easiest character for me to play. Unquote. Blank comes across as passionately protective of Sylvester in his memoir, even defends Sylvester's tactics as the effects of a starving cat dealing with Tweety, who is nowhere near the innocent baby bird audiences believed him to be. He also disliked that Tweety, who was unquestionable the fan favorite, got main billing on cartoons that were clearly Tweety and Sylvester duo comedies. For Sylvester's catchphrase, Blank pulled a line from his days as a radio star. Quote, keeping in mind Sylvester's spluttering delivery, I wanted a phrase with two or more S's in it. Since I already borrowed his voice from Daffy, I had no consumptions about nicking a line from another of my creations. Traveling salesman Roscoe E. Wardle from radio's quote the Judy Canova show, unquote. The line, of course, is this suffering succotash. The voice, quote unquote, borrowed for Daffy and Sylvester was from another character on the Judy Canova show. And that character name was Sylvester. The original radio show character's name, likely inspired changing the cat originally known as Thomas to Sylvester. And there we go with that one. So we're done with the articles for tonight. Hey, Natsumi. Welcome back. Hopefully everything's cool with you. So anyway, so we're done with that article. We're done with the articles now. Of course, a friendly reminder to everybody: if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we get some more friendly people to engage in the content. That would be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's talk some wrestling here. So, one piece of news I forgot to mention yesterday that came out yesterday. So, former WWE star Alberto Del Rio, who's currently wrestling in AAA down in Mexico, recently was suspended by the Tijuana Commission after an altercation with some fans at a AAA event down there. So apparently he's been suspended for, I guess, the next 6 months from wrestling down there. Now he's not suspended from AAA or anything like that. He's suspended from any appearances in the Tijuana area of Baja, Mexico. So that came out yesterday. I forgot to mention that. Goldberg recently came out and said he was kind of disappointed that he talked about wanting as for a retirement match, wanting to take on Braun Breaker. Kind of disappointed that fans still kind of talk about his lack of wrestling ability, even though a lot of people are using a move that he kind of helped to create and popularize, the spear. And there's also some concern that Sting may not be able to. Luger recently came out and said, "Hey, if it shows up, welcome to the stream. Thanks for popping in. Hope you're having a good day today." But anyways, so it was recently announced that Lex Luger will be being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this year, and that he was hoping to have possibly Diamond Dallas Page and or Sting induct him this year. Might not be staying for too long. If you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. And as always, I do keep these up, so you can always come back and watch it if you want to come back and check out articles from earlier as well. I'm not Teespring. Teespring took down my poster. I drew of Buckler for some reason. Oh. Well, don't know what to say about that. Wouldn't know too much about that. Let's see. Teespring is a print-on-demand website. Okay. All right. Well, anyways, so as I was just saying, though, so Lex Luger was hoping to get DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, and Sting to possibly help induct him in the Hall of Fame. But since Sting is still technically under contract with AEW, Tony Khan might not let him, go do it, which is kind of disappointing, especially considering the kind of the amended, considering the kind of the tension between the two companies. Also, there's been dropping some sites that Malachi Black may be making his return to the WWE soon as well. So, anyways, that's all for the WWE news. So let's go back to last night's Dynamite. I look back to last night, as there was quite a bit of stuff going down on last night's Dynamite. So on last night's Dynamite, of course, coming from the Liberty First Credit Union Center, Omaha, Nebraska, had Excalibur, Taz, Tony Schiavone on commentary, with Don Callis and Tony Storm doing commentary as guest. Opening match saw the final four-way match for the to see who would face Kenny Omega at Revolution for the international title. Speedball Mike Bailey and Ricochet defeated Mark Davis and Orange Cassidy. So I guess they're both going to be I guess going to be a three-way for the international title at Revolution. Mercedes Moné successfully defended the TBS title against Billy Starks. John Moxley successfully defended the world title against Cope in a street fight. Will Ospreay defeated AR Fox. In the main event saw Megan Bayne continue her rise over Chris Statlander. So that's all the stuff that went down on that's all that went down on Dynamite last night. I saw the Looney Tunes movie yesterday. Oh, okay. What, the original one or a more recent one? Because they've had a number of movies over the years, actually. So anyways, now getting ready to move on to what to look forward to tonight's tonight's Impact, and then tonight's Impact, and then tonight's Impact, as well as tonight's Ring of Honor. So on tonight's Impact, coming from the El Paso County Coliseum in El Paso, Texas. Let's see what time it is. You'll have the opening match. We'll see the Rascals of Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz taking on the Northern Armory duo of Judas Icarus and Travis Williams. Mustafa Ali and Mike Santana will have a rematch from their Sacrifice match. Mance Warner takes on Magno, and then Elijah teams with TNA World Champion Joe Hendry to take on the System's Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers. And also on tonight's Ring of Honor show, Ring of Honor called the 108th episode of Ring of Honor, coming from the Memorial Auditorium in Sacramento, California, with Caprice Coleman, Ian Riccaboni on commentary. Top Flight, the Martin brothers, Dante and Darius Martin, take on Aaron Solo and QT Marshall in somewhat of a reunion of the Factory stable. Satnam Singh makes his return to Ring of Honor after having been down in Mexico for a while, taking on Sid Ellington. AR Fox takes on Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight, one half of the Intergalactic Jet Setters duo. The La Facción Ingobernables duo of Jalisco and Beast Muertos take on Gabriel Eros and Eli Theseus. La Catalina takes on Vivian Vaughn. In a match for the Ring of Honor World Television title, Commander takes on Dark Panther. And the main event we'll see in trios action of Fuego Mystico and Neon taking on the trio of Hechicero, Rugido, and Volador Jr. So that's all that's going down on tonight's the new one. All right. So that's all that's going down on in the wrestling news. I have, of course, the results of those for tomorrow. But with that being said, let's get ready to go ahead and move on to this day in each history. As today, with today being Thursday, March 20th, 2025, let's take a look back at this day in each history. History! So, 2020, and then, all right. So first off, we're gonna head back 60 years ago today, as on this date back in 1965. Toei Animation's Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 1965. It was a 1965 Japanese animated feature. So on this date back in 1965, Toei Animation's Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 1965. So now, getting ready to moving on to the next piece of niche history as we move ahead to 1985. So I'd like to wish a happy 40th birthday to Matt Taven, one half of the Kingdom Tag, currently under contract with AEW. So happy 40th birthday to Matt Taven, former Ring of Honor World Champion, multiple time former tag team champion as well. Happy 40th birthday to him on this his day. He's born back in 1985 on this day. Then moving ahead to 2019, on this date 6 years ago today, in 2019, on this date 6 years ago today, in 2019, the 15th edition of Evolution from Image went on sale on this date back in 2019. Sold for $3.99 with 28 pages. So, and finally, we will finally get to the final piece of niche history today here. On this date, 5 years ago today, back in 2020, on this date in 2020, let's see, Mira the Royal Detective premiered on Disney Junior on this date back in 2020, and Buddy premiered on Netflix on this date back in 2020. So Mira, Royal Detective, and Buddy premiered on Disney Junior and Netflix respectively on this date back in 2020, 5 years ago today. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I thank everybody for being here tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow night with more niche news. And of course, this Sunday I will have Metal from the Vomitorium joining me. We'll be looking back at comics that went on sale in May of 1940. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale from Dell, most notably from their Four Color series, focusing in on can't even remember the feature's name now or the guy's name now. But anyways, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.